Good morning and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. So Microsoft Ignite is next week. That's come around quickly. It feels like not that long ago we were talking about the spring one. Just a kind of gentle reminder that Ignite currently happens twice a year in these kind of virtual times. It will be really interesting to see what happens next year, actually, for all sorts of reasons. You know, will we go to a hybrid event? Will there be in-person Ignites next year? I think we're just going to have to wait and see. I think this one, ended up virtual. I think that was a sort of a decision that had to be made. And so I think there was a period of time when, we hoped maybe it was going to be in person, but obviously that's not to be. I think what's interesting as well, and we're going to talk through Ignite picks in a minute, but it sort of changed how Ignite is. It's changed the format, which I think is a good thing because it's not the same as it was before, just online. I think what everybody has found in the last 2 years or so is that sort of thing doesn't really work. So it needs a different approach. So anyway, that wasn't what I was going to start off by talking about. What I was going to start off by talking about is a blog post that I only just got around to writing over the weekend that really kind of should have been written a week ago, but that's just the way it is. And it concerns the ability to monetize apps in the Teams App Store. So this is a story that's been going on for a long time. I've been talking about this since 2019. It's obviously a large amount of work has needed to take place across probably multiple teams. The Teams team, there's a back end part to this. There's the Teams admin center. There's how do you even sort of do that monetization process, and how do you set all that stuff up? There is no Teams doesn't have that sort of infrastructure or that kind of concept or construct in place. Azure does. So there's all sorts of teams that need to work together to make this happen, which is presumably why it's taken quite a long time from first being announced to going into developer preview, which is where it is now. So because it's gone into developer preview, we've got some real detail now, because it's also imminently into GA. So we've got all the detail really about how it's going to work. Courtesy of a blog post from James Skay, which I've put in my blog post. What's interesting is that actually James starts off by giving some really good reasons for developers to start thinking about Microsoft Teams and to start developing in the Teams ecosystem. So for instance, if nothing else, 250 million monthly active users, that's a good number of eyes to put your app in front of. So if you're a developer, an indie developer thinking about building an application and you don't know where to put it, consider the Teams App Store. Also, Microsoft charge just 3% transaction fee for apps. So that's a lot lower than, for instance, some of the mobile marketplaces. And it's kind of interesting if you think about it. You can make, Teams also works on mobile, so your apps also work through the Teams mobile client. So there's some fine line to walk there, but it is possible if you want your app running on a mobile device, you can make that happen through Teams for 3%. And also Microsoft keen to point out things like their support program for ISVs, sort of training and financial support as well. So anyway, I last talked about this about 2 months ago when something showed up on the Microsoft 365 roadmap that was kind of concerning this stuff and bringing it into Teams. And at the time, I had some questions around how exactly it's going to work in practice, how you set it all up, whether it's going to be worldwide only or just US, and what controls Teams admins are going to have. We mostly have the answers to those questions now. So in terms of setup, I go through the process in the blog post. I'm not going to do it now. It's a fairly sort of complicated setup, I suppose. There's no, it's not complicated technically. There's just lots of hoops to jump through, lots of things to put in place. You are basically tying together two separate systems, the Teams ecosystem of apps and the Azure ecosystem of SaaS marketplace offers. And you tie those two things together. The crucial thing that ties them together is, as I spoke about 2 months ago, thanks to Alexis, who dropped me that tip around the subscription offer in the app manifest. So that is exactly how you tie together a Teams app manifest to an Azure ISV offer. And everything after that is really just kind of configuration and setup stuff. It does look like it's going to be a worldwide launch. I'm still trying to get complete confirmation on that, but to be honest, I'm pretty confident it is, because the Azure SaaS marketplace offering is worldwide. It's available in 141 regions, and there's really no reason to see why that would not then be you wouldn't then be able to tie any Teams application to that ISV offering. That SaaS offering. So. I do think that's going to be worldwide from launch, which is great news, especially for those of us who don't live in the US. When it comes to admin controls for ITs, I think there's some stuff here. So admins will be able to purchase subscriptions on behalf of users. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, because admins can bulk buy, so for instance 10 or 20, 30 licenses of a particular application. I think my guess is that they're then assigned on a first come first served basis to users who go into the App Store and go and buy them. There's sort of no money that changes hands. You just get a sort of, your admins paid for this. I don't know if it's possible for admins to assign licenses to users in that way. Don't have that detail. I'm going to have to just try it and see. Also, it doesn't seem like there's any way to prevent users from purchasing apps, because right now, users can just sign up for subscriptions and licenses using their own credit card or whatever, and possibly even invoice billing as well. I'm not sure. That might just be admins actually that can do invoice billing. I would guess so. So as long as they've got a valid credit or debit card, individual end users can then sign up for subscriptions. There's no way that I can see for admins to kind of prevent users from doing that, other than by blocking apps that have subscriptions. I mean, that's not really practical, because, in 6 months' time, there's going to be thousands of apps that all have subscriptions. Blocking all of them doesn't feel like it's going to be feasible. I touched briefly a little bit on the App Store in mobile, and I think that's going to be kind of interesting. So Microsoft have some fairly clear guidance for developers around monetization for Teams apps. The problem really is that because Teams apps are available in the Teams mobile client, technically any application that you submit to the App Store could show up on mobile. And so for that reason, you really have to align to the App Store guidelines of both the Android and the Google App Stores. So not including any offers or signing or advertising for purchasing subscription plans, no links to the purchase subscription plans, no use of the words free or free account. There's quite a few things that you have to make sure you do, and I think probably that is where the submission process, the Microsoft submission process for getting into the Teams App Store, will come and remind you if you're doing those things wrong. So it's kind of a fine line to walk, right? So just be aware of that if you're kind of doing that. So the other thing that I haven't seen written down anywhere, but I'm kind of inferring, I don't think that this process of purchasing apps that are chargeable, I don't think you'll be able to do that in the Teams mobile client, because all of the app stores don't allow stores within stores. So I don't feel like that is going to be possible. You're going to have to do it on the desktop, and then those apps will show up in the mobile client. I guess that's just how it's going to work. So interesting times. That's going to be interesting to see how that line gets kind of towed by kind of developers and by Microsoft as well. I think it's good for users, really good for users. Like I've said this before, I think having chargeable apps in the App Store will increase both the quality and the quantity of apps in the App Store. And I think it makes sense to have a viable market and a viable model for ISVs and app developers and indie app developers to kind of bother to spend the time basically making Teams apps. So I'm all for this. I think it's a great idea. We'll just kind of have to see how it works in practice. And I'm sure, if there's problems, Microsoft will fix them and kind of tweak it as it goes along. So that's kind of a biggie that has come out weirdly before Ignite. And so I don't know, maybe they just wanted to get it all out, bedded in, and get it out into developer previews so that they can announce it for GA Ignite. Not sure, we'll just have to wait and see. Or they might just ignore it completely because it's been announced now. So why announce it? Why announce it again? There's lots of other things I'm sure to talk about at Ignite. So that's all that stuff. I did put together a blog post as well around the things around Microsoft Ignite that I'm interested in. And I said this at kind of the top of this video. I think Ignite has evolved over the past few years with this kind of move to completely online and virtual. I think what we've seen is fewer long breakout sessions, like these kind of lecture style sessions, and much more collaborative sessions with fewer people. So product round tables and smaller kind of things like that, as well as a whole bunch of on-demand content. What's interesting with some of those roundtables is that I think for the first time, I don't think I've seen this before, but I could well be wrong because I wasn't really paying attention last time. Microsoft are saying you need to nominate for a roundtable and they will approve you. So kind of like a Microsoft whitelisting, if you like, or application process to show up at a roundtable. I think the intent here is Microsoft want to ensure that the people that are going to be there are really contributing and are not just kind of passively listening. They want to start a conversation. They want to engage with people and they want to get their feedback. And I think they're trying to drive that. So that's the reason. The thing about those is that they are limited in number, but they are all still recorded and available on demand. So for lots of them, I'm interested in them, but I know I'm not going to be able to make that time. So I'm not going to take a place that I know I'm not going to attend. But I will put them in my backpack so that I can watch the recording as soon as it's available. So I'm doing a lot of that this year. The other interesting thing, and I put this in my blog post as well, the other really good thing about getting everything on demand and watching them after the fact on demand is that you can go at like 1.5 speed or even 2 speed. And for me, it's a more productive way because actually you can kind of keep up with a lot of the intro, the outro, and if it gets to the really meaty, detailed, technical section, you can always slow it down, right? So it's a much more efficient way of getting through a lot of sessions as well, especially if there's parts you know and parts you don't know, and you just want to hone in on the parts that you don't know. You can go at like 1.5 speed easily. You can keep up with what's being said. It's pretty incredible, really, how your brain kind of can keep up with that stuff. You'd be surprised. Even 2 speed, your brain can keep up with what's being said. So that's my tip. Watch everything back on demand at double speed. So anyway, I've done a list of sessions that I'm interested in. Mostly they are the things you'd expect. There's teams, it's developers. There's a fairly heavy slant on Azure Communication Services again this year because I think that's really important. A slant on Power Platform again this year. A couple of oddballs, I suppose. There's one that's called What's New for Developers Building Apps That Power the Hybrid Workplace. So that is kind of interesting, but also in their description, they call out the Fluid project. I'm interested in seeing more about that. And then also there's one called Prepare for the Future of Calling with Microsoft Teams Phone, which does not sound like it would be in my wheelhouse, as it were. However, one of the speakers is Scott Van Vliet, who he has previously announced interesting things around Azure Communication Services. And so I am kind of interested to see if he comes and says anything specific to Azure Communication Services, Microsoft Teams. So that's the reason that one is in my schedule. The others are kind of pretty much what you'd expect. Okay, what else? Let's talk about this blog post, which was put out on the Microsoft Teams blog, a developer blog, called Learn How to Extend Microsoft Viva Connections by Rabia Williams. And this is a new learning path. So I'm interested in this because I do not know enough about Viva Connections. So I will be taking this learning path. And this is it's called Extend Microsoft Viva Connections. And it just covers kind of what Viva Connections is, how you can extend it, and what you build for it. So this is aimed at developers, and it's aimed at people who don't yet understand exactly what Viva Connections is, which is me, and how you extend it with web parts, with application customizers, with adaptive card extensions. So this sounds right like something, absolutely something I'm interested in, which it is. I'm going to be doing this, and it looks like, you don't really need a lot. You need SharePoint, you need a mobile device, some knowledge of JavaScript, some TypeScript, a code editor, and Node. So kind of pretty easy to get started with. There's a nice video as well. So yeah, this is definitely worth checking out. If you are doing it, well, if you're planning on doing anything with Viva connections, even if you have done lots of things with Viva connections, go and get the go do the learning path and go and get the badge, and then everyone will know that's what you've done as well. So definitely worth checking out. Finally, one from the Microsoft Graph developer blog. So this is it's probably not a breaking change, but it is a change. So it is worth being aware of. It probably won't break anything anybody does. I mean, it'd be a bit weird if it did, but let me tell you what it is, and then you can decide if it breaks your code. It is a change to some of the OData property results. So this concerns the usage reports in Microsoft 365. So in the Microsoft Graph, there's a whole section of usage reports. I think they all fall under like /reports namespace, and they use OData to get back some of the data. This is specific to the ones that return the data in JSON format. So sometimes you can return JSON, or sometimes the data only comes back in CSV. Sometimes it comes back in JSON. Sometimes you get to choose JSON or CSV. So this concerns stuff that comes back in JSON because it tends to have OData properties on it. And so there's two specific changes. The first is that the OData.context property is going to start being omitted and not included. I don't think anybody will be using this. It would be a bit weird if you did. If you're doing, I don't know, you might be relying on it if you're doing like, I can't imagine how you'd be doing this, but if you were doing like some kind of conversion to like some C# objects that really expected it to be there, then this might cause a problem. But anyway, check your code. It's probably fine. And the other one is the OData.nextLink property. And these OData ones, they're like the ones with the @ sign, so at OData. Let me share my screen so you can see what I'm seeing. It's these ones here. So so this at OData.context will be omitted, and then this one will be omitted if there's no next link available. This might possibly break you. I don't think so though. It depends how you're doing your like deserialization, but to be honest, it should be fine. Like currently it was null. Now it's not going to be there. So if you are doing any kind of serialization, it'll probably end up as null anyway. But yeah, like depending on how you're doing it, you might be depending on it and it might disappear, might cause a problem. So that is only going to be there if there is an X link, and it's going to be removed if there isn't. So some things to be aware of if you're using the usage reports API, if you're getting JSON and you're doing something with the structure of that uses the OData properties, just some things to be aware of. Okay. Oh, I should have said as well, that is... Well, okay, so that is already started happening. So that was a blog post that was put out on the 25th of October, and the change was beginning on the 25th of October. So good. So yes, so you probably already know if this is starting to impact you. If you're getting really weird bugs and you don't know why, maybe check this out. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about this week. Have a great week, whatever it is you're doing. Try and get some of Ignite if you can. Make sure you build up your session in the session scheduler, even if it's just to put a load of things in your backpack so you know to come back later when it's all on demand and you know what you want to watch. That is worth doing. Try and get the keynotes if you can. And have a great week, and I will talk to you again next time. Have a good one.